Let's take a closer look at the vintage collection Artillery Stormtrooper from The Mandalorian.
Varykino, living the Star Wars life.
Hello there, and thanks for visiting the Varykino YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be unboxing the vintage collection 3.75-inch figure of the Artillery Stormtrooper from The Mandalorian. As you can see from the card art here, this is from the Season 2 episode, The Tragedy, when the Empire recaptures Grogu on the planet Tython. This was a really popular figure when it originally showed up on store shelves here in New Zealand. We didn't manage to find it, but we've recently had school holiday toy sales, and we randomly stumbled across this figure on clearance. We couldn't believe it. We've never been able to find it up until now, and lo and behold, it was even on sale. So a really exciting find for an awesome Star Wars figure. So of course I had to add it to my opening list immediately. And coincidentally, we are also doing a bit of a Stormtrooper celebration here on the channel, opening up new and slightly older Stormtrooper collectibles that have been sitting in our storage and finally getting them on display. So this was a perfect find for this week. As we can see, we have a really interesting Stormtrooper here. My husband has been costuming as a Stormtrooper for many years, going on 20 years now. So I'm a little bit familiar with the armor as I helped him get into costume over the years. So I have always referred to this particular component as the thermal detonator. So that is what I will refer to in this video. But we've also got this really interesting launcher, because this is sort of a weaponry means of attack that we haven't really seen the Stormtroopers do before in live action Star Wars series. So we've got some really new and interesting accessories here for this figure that I'm super keen to check out. So before I do, I'm just going to go over the packaging, because, you know, the vintage collection packaging is just iconic, and look at the figure in the way that it is presented here. So one little note, we've got obviously really interesting yellow paintwork on this figure. And if we compare it to another Stormtrooper figure from The Mandalorian, the Incinerator Trooper, we can see that the paint lines follow the same pattern. We've got the pictures are a little bit easier to see. We've got sort of the mouthpiece of the helmet and a vertical stripe. We've got chest details and kind of a line around the edges of the armor. So I think it's really interesting that these follow the same paint scheme pattern, but obviously in very different colors. So it's kind of fun. We can see the different big weaponry. We've got the flamethrower here, and we've got the thermal detonator launcher for this one. I will be opening this one up in a very soon coming up video. So I'll just pop that one to the side. So let's take a closer look at the packaging here for this one. We've got the red Mandalorian logo here with that chrome racetrack, so iconic. We've got a blue color used for the nameplate and behind the figure, Artillery Stormtrooper written there nice and clear. We've got a really good promotional image of the Stormtrooper from the show on one knee as he is about to launch a thermal detonator, seen very clearly there with his launcher there. And then we've got the figure here. So I think this is really interesting. This has got to be a bit of a larger assortment of accessories for a standard figure. I recently unboxed the deluxe Navarro Cantina Stormtrooper that came with the E-Web, and that was obviously a deluxe price point. We've got a fair amount of accessories here, which I really like, you know, just fitting there on a standard card. It's going up there a little bit to the side. His toes are a little bit pointed. But honestly, if you like keeping your vintage collection figures carded, I think this is a beautiful example. And I was kind of tempted to keep this one carded myself, but you know what? I need to add it to my loose action figure display, so it's time to get it off the backing card. But that just looks so awesome, doesn't it? On the back, we can see some of the other figures from this assortment, and we can see that this is VC263, so a slightly more recent figure in this line. It is possibly one of the most recent versions of Stormtroopers that we have had in this particular line, and we can see the other figures here. We have the Darth Vader Dark Times, Obi-Wan Kenobi Wandering Jedi, Clatoonian Raider, Luke Skywalker Imperial Light Cruiser, Cal Kestis, Cassian Andor, and Val Sarthar. So we were able to find most of these figures locally, not all. Distribution can be patchy here in New Zealand, but yes, the Artillery Stormtrooper was the one that disappeared by far the fastest. So very, very excited to have this one in our collection, and I cannot wait to open it and check out all of the details. So let's get into it. So now I have everything out of the packaging, and there is so much to go over. I'm really excited. We've got the figure itself, obviously, and we've got an array of accessories. We have 4 thermal detonators, an E11 blaster rifle, and we have that launcher in 2 parts, which I'll assemble very shortly. But I want to take a closer look at the figure itself because this is just fantastic. So one of the first things I noticed getting it out of the bubble was his backpack, because that was hidden behind the figure while he was on the card. And we can see that we've got these sort of canister sections here, which I'm really hoping will be able to fit the thermal detonators in there, but I'll do that later because this might be like, you know, AA batteries in a compartment where they kind of get in there and then it's a little bit tricky to get them out. So I'm going to load that up later. But I'm really hoping that that will be a nice, safe way to store these very small accessories. I was really worried when I saw them in the backing card. I'm like, that feels like something that's going to get lost very, very quickly. You don't really want to leave something this small just sitting on the shelf besides your figure. They are circular. They're going to roll. I was really worried about that. So I'm hoping that they will fit securely in there. And again, I'm hoping that I can perhaps get one in his hand. So we'll test that as well. So let's take a closer look at the figure. I wanted to just see while I'm talking about the backpack, if this one will come off. Yes. Okay. So we've got a nice peg hole there and a matching shaped peg. So it's only going to go on in one direction there. And taking a look at the back sculpt here of the figure, I can see the remnants of the details of the back of a standard Stormtrooper backplate there. So they haven't done like a new tool here. They've simply cut a hole for the peg there in the back because we've got these tiny little bits there. And unlike the standard Imperial Stormtrooper, this figure does not have a thermal detonator on the belt there. So I think that that's kind of interesting. So from the back, there are some differences compared to the standard Imperial Stormtrooper from the Vintage Collection line. But let's take a closer look at all of these fabulous details. Hasbro has really done a good job refining the accuracy and scale of Stormtrooper figures over the year, and I'm really happy with the era we are in for Stormtroopers, particularly the helmet. It's like Darth Vader. You kind of know in sort of weird tingly sort of spidey sense ways when classic iconic Stormtrooper helmets are just off in some manner, and I feel like this one just looks fantastic. I'm looking up close. Obviously, I only found one of these figures, so I didn't get to choose paint job variations, but this one is really clean and tidy. I am particularly always focused on that brow stripe. Tends to make Stormtroopers give a little bit of a quizzical expression if there is any kind of variability with that brow stripe. It's kind of like eyebrows of the helmet. That looks nice and straight and a good proportion there. We've got those tiny little blue stripes here on the side. We've got little details on the ear cups in those back recessed sections there. We've got this lovely vibrant yellow stripe coming down here to the front. We've got a pretty clean paint job for all of those small details around the chin here. We've got little silver dots there and black for that main chin piece there. We've got, it's really hard to see, white against yellow is a little bit of a hard contrast. There are some very tiny little points of white highlighting on top of the yellow, which is almost too hard to see against just shine. But that's really fun that they've added just a little bit of weathering there on the helmet. And then we've got those same details on the other side. So fantastic start there. I'm really liking it. Very clean, tidy paint job. Moving down, we have a pauldron, which has a little bit of movability here. It's a little bit more of a sort of soft rubbery plastic, and it is not fixed apart from around the neck, so you can move it. And I dare say if you want to remove the helmet, you can probably pop this off as well if you want to customize your figure. Curious to see how well we can move it around so that we can get a little bit more posability on this arm, because you can see it comes down a fair way over the shoulder there, but it is very accurate to the original Stormtrooper from the show, so I think that that's done very well. It is painted over black plastic. You can see the paint lines are pretty tidy there. There is just like some really sort of little variations, you know, where it's not really brush strokes, but, you know, perhaps just a few tiny little irregularities there. But overall, pretty tidy there. Okay, so I'm hoping that we've got pretty standard, sorry, there's just a little black mark here on the yellow paint. Sometimes these spots brush off. That one looks like that is perhaps just a tiny bit of black there on the yellow. But because we've got a little bit of weathering going on, I can look past small variations like that. This one, because of the yellow on white and just the actual detail of it, doesn't have as much weathering that I've seen on some of the others, say like the Flame Trooper and stuff like that. It's generally mostly straight yellow sections. The main weathering I can see, sort of break points in the yellow striping, is across the top of the thighs. There's like 1 or 2 little cuts into it. As you can imagine, if this guy is kneeling down to launch thermal detonators, this particular joint is where he's going to wear his armor a little bit more. And we've got a little bit here, perhaps if he is leaning down, he's going to wear this edge against his ab plate. If you've ever worn Stormtrooper armor, you will know how much it can restrict your movement there. So that makes total sense that we're going to have a little bit of wear to this particular yellow paint scheme there. But overall, these lines look really tidy, which of course, you know, you want your Stormtroopers to look nice. And I think this one does. The yellow is so bright. I think it's really bright and just fun. And I know yellow is often like a sunny, happy, sort of cheerful color, which is kind of such a juxtaposition with, you know, scary Stormtroopers. But I think it really works here. So moving down from the chest and the arms, we've got those very, very tidy little light gray, sort of a mid-gray accent for the ab plate buttons here. Very, very tidy, very well aligned to the sculpted details there of the abdomen. We've got the belt, plain white, with the little drop boxes here, which are sort of softer. I can move them around if I get my finger under there. So there we've got there. And just a few painted details here on the legs and down at those lower ankle pieces there. So to my eye, the paint all looks pretty tidy. As to be expected, there's always going to be just some tiny little bits where we've got a little bit. See that here we've got the white just sort of spilling over onto the black of the undersuit, back of the knee. That's not really going to bother me too much because that's, you know, such a minimal viewpoint there. And we've perhaps just got 1 or 2 little sections here, almost so small the camera can't focus on it. We've got a little bit of black from the elbow here on the white armor and that black spot there. But I'm looking at really close up. If we put our figures on display facing forward, like I assume most of us do, I'm not going to see those at all. And another place that tends to get a little bit more paint variability is on the back of the hands, because the hands are made of black plastic. So the white and the yellow is painted here. This one looks pretty tidy. I don't think it goes over too much. Little bit of variation on this edge. Again, I'm trying to get the camera to focus on it because I'm looking at really small details. And this one looks pretty tidy there as well. So very happy with my paint job. I didn't have options to look at them on the store shelf, so very happy that the one that I found is good paint. So let's take a closer look at the articulation. I'm expecting pretty standard, movement here. We can go up and we can see that sculpting, if I can get the light to catch on it, the undersuit of modern figures has the ridges that is not really evident in the original trilogy era figures or the performers on screen. It's more of a modern detail here, and I can really sort of see that here. I can feel it with my fingernail there, but we can rotate his arm around, we can go all the way up, and that's nice sort of clicky joints here. Now I'm really hoping, particularly when we've got unique weapons, that we can really get the arms in tight close to the body for holding things. This one is a little bit stiff through the elbow. I'm certainly not one to put too much stress and tension on joints, particularly with this smaller scale. Sometimes I'm a little bit braver with the larger Black Series 6-inch figures. This one, the elbow doesn't really want to turn very well. Yeah, this one I can't rotate it very well. So that's interesting. It just doesn't really want to move there. So I can go up like that. So we'll see how that's going to impact posing there. Let's see if I can do it on this side. I can bend it that way. Yeah, that one's easy. I can move that one. I can move that arm in. This one it's stuck. it's just, I'm bending the plastic to move the arm in. So he's a little bit stuck in this direction. So I'm going to have to use some other points of articulation to kind of get his arm over perhaps a little bit, because if I play around with posing after I finish unboxing him, I might be able to sort of loosen up that joint a little bit. Sometimes you really got to sort of put a little bit of stress there, but I'm not really game to do that right now. We've got some really good articulation through the torso here, moving all the way around. So we've got lots of posability there, which is nice. It's interesting that we've now got, you know, back in the past, we would have the articulation more through the waist, particularly at belts and stuff like that. For Stormtroopers, it works so well because this is just where they're going to be able to get a good amount of flex, and we can get some of those forward-facing movements that you can't do with a simple side-to-side rotation through the waist. So we've got some pretty good movement. I had a little bit of a play with the legs when I got him out of the packaging because his feet were all sort of twisted in. So just to get him to stand, I had to sort of move him around. But we've got some really good hip movement here. I think I can see a joint at the top of his legs, but to be honest, he's moving so freely at the top of the hip. I'd have to really grip him to do that. So let's see. We can get his knee all the way out to the side if I'm going to rotate him around. Yeah, lots of good posability with the hips there. Pretty good at the knee, which if I'm going to replicate that pose, I really, really wanted to. And we can go about that far back with the ankle. So let's see. We can get to about there. And I'm just curious. Let's see how well. This one's a bit more stiff. I can rotate this one around a lot. I've got to find the articulation sort of point. If I can get his knee, that's going to take a bit of work. It doesn't want to, yeah, I'm going to have to play around with some articulation points because I can see the joint and I'm not sure the camera's going to show up. There's like two different plastics here. The point where the thigh is attached to the armor is shiny, and then we've got more of a black plastic there. So I should be able to rotate it, but the whole leg wants to move at the hip rather than that part there. So it's really hard to see. Yeah, I can just, if I really hold on to the top of the leg, I can just move that. But yeah, so I'm definitely going to have to play around because I can't get this leg to go up here. So I'm definitely going to have to check that out in a moment. But overall, I'm happy with the articulation. It's just this arm, I'm going to have to like loosen that up a little bit because I really want his arm to come in a little bit closer, I think. But this one is good. And we'll test out the E11 shortly as well, because of course he's got the sort of classic Stormtrooper hands. This one has more of a circle grip. This one has that trigger finger. So we'll put the E11 in this hand and see how well that goes. And I like, his hands have got good movement there as well. We've got that little bit of side to side and we can move them around. I generally don't actually tip my hands side to side for that on my figures. Generally the rotation is enough there. But then again, I'm not doing the professional toy photography, so I know some people are really going to appreciate the really sort of fine tweaks that they can do. Moving on, we've got a standard E11 blaster accessory here. It's not perhaps the sharpest detail I've seen of some of these blaster accessories, but then it's a pretty standard one. Doesn't have any paint effects, and it's a pretty good scale. So I'm just going to check this out in his hand. See how well this is going to fit in here. I'm hoping I can get, yep, there we go. Can get his hand neatly in that. Very, very nice. Nice scale as well. We've moved past those big, chunky accessory weapons. The vintage collection does very good for the weapons, I think, in terms of being in scale. And that went in fairly well. Some of them I feel like I'm stretching the trigger finger out a little bit or just putting some stress on the hand. That fits really nicely. So let's take a closer look at this launcher accessory now. I took a quick break and yes, I was eventually able to loosen up this elbow and it now moves like it should. So you can see I got a two-handed pose here with the E11 accessory. very nice. Unfortunately, I was not able to loosen up this leg, so I cannot get him in a kneeling pose. To be honest, I don't know that action figures are really the best for getting that kind of low down pose. Perhaps it would look better on a larger scale where you've just got a little bit more posability there, but for now he is standing up straight. So let's get on with the unique launcher accessory. So we've got this articulated base plate here. You can see it's just moving around a ball shaped attachment point, and then we have a peg hole here in the underside. It's not a black plastic, it is sort of the same color as the backpack, which kind of looks like a dark gray, almost trending towards a brown there. So it's got a little bit of a metal sort of esque finish there to it, but it isn't a metallic finish, but it looks pretty nice. We've got the separate leg part here that has a ball shaped attachment point. I'm going to put this two together. Let's see how hard this is to put in here. Okay, it snaps in there very securely, and this can also rotate. So we've got a little bit of adjustment, and then we can put that on the ground there. That looks really nice. So there is a hollow opening here. I'm very keen to test out the thermal detonators. These are so tiny, honestly. They look like tiny little Tic Tacs. On the backing card, they were sort of packaged like this. They looked pretty plain. Now that I've got them out of the packaging, you can see very, very small sculpted details here, which is nice. The one thing that I think these could have really shone is there is no paint apps to these. On the backing card, the sort of recesses at the ends are usually gray. There is no paint here, but considering their size, I think the fact that they even have that sculpted detail there is pretty good. So yes, I guess if you have a keen eye, you could go and paint some gray stripes on the end there if you really wanted to. But I am curious to see how well they might fit in here, and whether they go all the way in or are they just going to sort of sit in it. Okay, so if I drop it in, I could hear it hitting the back end. So you can just sort of see just how sort of in it goes. So I can't like load up a couple here, and I assume it just falls out. So there's no firing mechanism or anything here, because I think they're just a little too small, and this is more for accuracy rather than a play feature. But yes, so if you want to, you can have one posed there, ready to fire. And then of course we've got this backpack accessory. So I took a little bit of a look at it earlier. I'm just going to take a little bit more of a closer look before I try one of them in here. So like the launcher, it's just all one color apart from this yellow one, which kind of makes me think of like a Lego yellow piece or something here. It kind of gives me like, perhaps it is another thermal detonator, because one of the details on the side, these parts look like the Death Trooper thermal detonators that we see in Rogue One. I believe the visual dictionary refers to them as fragmentation grenades. But I like that they're sort of sculpted on the side there. Obviously they don't come off, they're just part of the mold, but that's kind of fun. So we've kind of got just a few pouch details here, and then that yellow section there. We've got a little bit of ridge here, some details, and pretty nice. So this may or may not work, and I might not get them back out again. So let's see how well these are going to fit in here. I don't know where I want to try. I assume that it could potentially fit all four. I'm going to see. This is going to be a trick, isn't it? Seeing if I can get these in here, and whether they're going to, they might not actually, or it's going to take a lot of force and then I'm going to regret getting them in there. Okay. Oh, I got one in the end. There we go. That one fits. Nice. Okay. So I may not try and put the other ones in there because I may not get them out again. Okay, let's try. Let's see how well I can. Okay, if I lift up from the bottom, I can get it out. Okay, not too bad, not too bad. That's nice. Very cool. Okay, I'm happy. So I've got the last two sitting over here. I want to see how well he can hold them. So I'm going to take the E11 out of his hand. I'll get that one out. I'm going to use this hand, I think, because it's a little bit of a tight grip, but it's his, you know, famous accessory. I want him to hold one of these. Perhaps he's going to just throw one as well as the launcher. I'm going to see how well he might hold this. If I can get his thumb to open up. I really want him to hold it. I want to see how hard this might be. Come on, okay. The hands on action figures really want to rotate around. Yeah? It kind of looks like he's holding a drink, but there, I can get it in his hand. Nice. So I guess I could put the E11 in one hand and a thermal detonator in the other. He'll be armed to the teeth. That's pretty cool. Nice, okay. That's really fun. Cool. And it's kind of a shame I can't get him to kneel down, but I can kind of have him posed like he is ready to fire. And then I might see if I can put a second one in here just to see what this one looks like if I put it right next to the other one. Trying to have the sculpted details facing outward because I think that just looks better. So here we go. Got two of them lining up there. Really cool. I get the feeling if I put all of them in there, I might get one stuck. So I'm going to just leave those two there for now because I think this is how I want to display it. So he's got one in his hand, he's got two in his backpack, and one ready to fire. Oh, this is really cool. There we go. And then he's got his E11 just sort of sitting to the side. I'll bring him to the forward. So we can see there. His ankles on my particular figure are just a little bit, not wonky, just a little bit unsteady. I gotta finesse that pose there. But when it comes to 3.75 inch figures, I do put them on clear plastic stands. I don't take any chances there. Their accessories are very small and very losable, and I don't want them falling off my display shelf. So he will be going on his stand. So it's not too much of an issue there because, of course, action figures always come with those peg holes in at the bottom of their feet. But there. This is really cool. I'm having so much fun unboxing this one. He looked pretty cool on his backing card, but there is something, I don't know, I've just always loved getting my action figures out on display, even if I do keep them on the card for a little while. And I have to confess that I do buy some figures, particularly ones that are a collecting focus, say some of my favorite characters like Ahsoka Tano. Sometimes I keep one carded as an example, and the other one I open up for collectible displays. So there we go. This one looks really, really cool. Really happy. So much going on in this figure, and he looks pretty cool. So now I am ready to add him to my loose 3.75 action figure display for the Mandalorian. And as you can see, I had a couple of others, like the Flame Trooper. Gonna get him out very soon. I want to see his unique flamethrower accessory as well. Very, very keen. So there we go. That was a little bit of a longer video, but thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me as I unbox my Artillery Stormtrooper 3.75 inch figure and check out all of his accessories. I know theoretically, technically, these are toys, even though we know the vintage collection is not really targeted towards kids, but as adult collectors, this is about as close as we come to playing with our toys. We get them out, we check out all the features, get them in some fun poses, and then we're going to put them on the display shelf. So I always have a little bit of fun playing with my toys when I get them out because, yeah, they're just so cool, aren't they? We spend a lot of our time collecting these things and celebrating them. So I have fun celebrating each one in my collection. So thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me as I unbox this one today. We're going to be featuring more Stormtrooper collectibles coming up on the channel very shortly, so do subscribe if you are a fan of the Galactic Empire, with lots of other Star Wars collectibles interspersed in the mix like Micro Galaxy Squadron and Hot Wheels Starship Selects. We're having a lot of fun unboxing those lines at the moment as well. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me today. Catch you in the next video, and as always, may the Force be with you.
If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like. Check out our other videos and subscribe for alerts about new uploads. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.